The voice you hear is that of Pat Quinn, who's now the co-chair of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and of course has had a lifetime in hockey. He's done it all. If you didn't hear right from the onset of this interview, we've been talking a little bit about that. Let me switch gears for you for just a second, Pat, and I won't keep you much longer. I know you got a full day ahead of you. It seems to me, looking at the inductees last night, we just talked about Fred Shero, that Scott Niedermayer, Chris Chelios, Brendan Shanahan did not make it a difficult decision for you and your selection committee to make.
No, I think they were pretty easy selections.
Sorry, I shouldn't forget Geraldine Heaney. So my apologies, sir.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all. It's we had a number of players to consider, and as we've expanded again, sometimes our rules for selection probably were developed in the 80s, I think, and then more honed up in the 90s. So now we're talking about 30 teams, and we're talking about Europe, and this is the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's not just North American Hall of Fame, and so now we've got so many more players to consider and people in the game to consider. I just mentioned that there used to only be one coach. Now there's 3 and 4 coaches per team. There's management personnel that way. We've got all the amateur people in the builders category to consider across Canada that have made a contribution to hockey as builders, and we've got kind of fallen behind a little bit. Like, for example, we only have one builder this year, again because of our rules, and in the past 2 years we didn't have any builders, and we're kind of then we have to look at that area. It's a little bit flawed.
Time to expand, you mean, the numbers perhaps that you allow in to accommodate the growth of the game?
Yeah, maybe expand a little bit more, but also right now the referees category and the builders category conflict. They work against each other on minimizing who you could consider, how many you can consider. Like the minute, for example, the minute a referee is put forward, then there's only one builder can go in, and you might have as many as, and we've had as many as 10 builders to consider on some years, and so when you're only able to put one in, that makes it pretty tough. And then you got to hit the 75% mark on top of that, and you got 18 opinions on who's qualified out of those 10 people, and all of a sudden it thins out. You vote for the person you think is right, and the next thing you know, you're sitting there and nobody has 75%, even though there might be worthy people sitting on that list. And the players are still a little bit different. We are allowed to put 4 in. The nomination process has to come from within the selection committee, even though we all get the public submissions. The nomination still has to come from within the committee. You're only allowed 1.
So if I write a letter to the Hockey Hall of Fame and say, I want so-and-so in, what happens to it? It
would then get passed around the committee so that they're at least apprised of the public opinion.
That's good.
Yeah, well, it's a way that we try to obviously be on top of who's available anyway. We have our own list, but sometimes you don't know the public sentiment, and it's always nice to have that outside voice, and then you make your selection after that. But all of the 18 would receive all that information.
And 14 of them have to vote to make the 75% in favor, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so you've talked about how, a guy might not be a bad choice, but because other guys are voting for other players, it gets diluted down. That's what you meant by that, which means you might not get the 14. How about this? I'll just throw it at you. It's something we've talked about on these shows before. In the Baseball Hall of Fame, we know what percentage of a vote a guy got. How about that for the Hockey Hall of Fame, so that we know how close, for example, you were to putting Eric Lindros in, or Phil Housley, etc., etc.?
Well, there's been argument over the years about protecting those that have been put forward that, in theory, the public doesn't know, although the media often is either making a suggestion or wondering why after the fact, or they put names up just saying, well, these are all eligible. And what you try to do is protect those that were in it and don't make it for some reason. Now, they may make it along the way someplace, but if you max out at your 4, or if you don't get the proper votes, like this year, we had much more than 3 people that went in to consider this year. But by the time you ended up having the votes, only 3 of them got the 75% because there was a difference of opinion on many of the other people that were eligible. So
it's a great point.
So it's in respect of the anonymity of those that come up, we say no, we don't want that known right now. So that they don't, they have their own privacy respected, and they don't have to answer the questions, and they may still have to answer them anyway, because clearly, after the fact, people have opinions, and
well, and it's a fair point, Pat, because if it were me and I was one of the guys who's eligible, and I discovered that I only got 3 out of 18 votes, personally, and you'd have to answer to that for people around to say, oh, well, look at you. You weren't that good, or conversely, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then again, from a talk radio point of view, that would be great.
Well, we each have our own idea about where we might slot in too. Those players, and so it saves some of that disappointment. You really aren't supposed to know even if your name's put forward. So that's how we try to protect that. And those rules, we talk about them. It's the board of directors that decides on the rules, not the committee.
Okay.
The committee just follows the rules. And
so for any change to be made to the process, that has to go through the NHL board of directors.
It's not the NHL. The Hall of Fame actually has a much varied 18 directors appointed from different areas of the game of hockey. For example, you have many out of the NHL, but you also have U.S. hockey, you have international hockey represented, you have Hockey Canada represented, you have some media people on there, excuse me, and you have local city people, actually, some councillors on there. So,
interesting.
It is, they're the caretakers of the museum business and of the process of selecting players to go in, and most of them believe it is a players' Hall of Fame, and we all believe that it is a players. But there are others that have made some contributions that are valuable to the development of this game and taking it to where it is today.